Do you think there are places that look calm, beautiful, almost peaceful, yet hide something so dangerous that a single wrong step can erase your name from history? In 1958, Iceland had many untouched regions, but one particular stretch of Vatnajökull Glacier carried stories that even locals avoided repeating. They said weather behaved like a living creature. They said the ice groaned like it remembered something. And they said if you wandered too far, the land would take you without leaving a trace. This is the story of a young man named Henrik Amundsen. A man who wanted silence, but instead walked into the coldest hunger he had ever known. Henrik arrived in Iceland at the age of 27. He worked as a school teacher back in Trondheim, but his heart had always belonged to the northern wilderness. He wanted to see a place untouched, a place older than memory. He believed that if he could spend a few days alone on the glacier, he would return home with a clearer mind, a quieter soul. Locals warned him not to enter the eastern ridge of Vatnajökull. They said storms moved faster than footsteps. They said compasses spun uselessly. Henrik smiled politely and assumed they were exaggerating. He rented a small horse, packed simple gear, and promised himself he would return before the week ended. 5 minutes into his journey across the first stretch of ice, the horse stopped walking and refused to move forward. Henrik thought it was nerves. It wasn't. The horse sensed something he didn't. But Henrik stepped forward anyway. The glacier was stunning. Long fields of white stretching into an endless horizon. The silence felt almost sacred. Henrik felt grateful to be alone with his thoughts. But something bothered him. His map didn't match the shapes of the ice formations ahead. Ridges appeared where drawings showed flat ground. Deep cracks ran across the path, even though his map showed a smooth trail. Still, he continued. Then came the wind. Not a steady wind. A sudden push from the side, almost like something shoved him. He lost balance and kneeled into the ice. When he stood up, he noticed thin scratches across the surface. Straight. Long. As if something had dragged across the ice recently. He studied them, confused, but kept walking. He wanted adventure. He was starting to get it. By late afternoon the sky began to darken. Not the slow dimming of sunset. A fast, unsettling shift. Clouds gathered like someone pulled them across the sky by hand. Henrik felt his throat tighten. He had read about sudden weather changes, but this felt unnatural. Within minutes the temperature dropped so sharply that his breath turned heavy and metallic. His fingers stiffened. His compass needle shook, then froze pointing east, even though he was sure east was behind him. He kept moving, but he sensed he was no longer walking across a friendly landscape. The glacier felt like a presence watching him, waiting for night. Henrik set up camp behind a thick ridge of ice, hoping it would block the wind. The sky above him churned like storm clouds arguing. He cooked a small meal, sat down, and tried to relax. Then, as he lifted his spoon, he heard a deep groan beneath him. The ice moved. Not cracked. Moved. Like something far below shifted its weight. He stopped breathing for a moment. 10 minutes later he heard something else. A low growl coming from behind a mound of ice. He stood up, his hands shaking. He called out, hoping it was a fox or wolf. The growl came again. Longer. Deeper. Not an animal he recognized. He didn't sleep. When morning came, the storm had wiped away all traces of his tracks. Everything looked the same in every direction. Henrik tried to orient himself with his map, but nothing matched. The ridges were wrong. The slopes were wrong. Even the shadows fell strangely. He tried walking west. After 2 hours he found himself back where he started. He tried south. Same result. He realized something horrifying. The glacier wasn't just confusing. It bent the light and wind in ways that made directions meaningless. He was trapped in a white maze that changed behind him as he walked. His water supply was half gone. He decided to move toward a line of dark rocks he saw the previous evening. Maybe solid ground. Maybe safety. But on his way there, the snow beneath him collapsed. He fell through a thin patch of ice into a narrow crevasse. He screamed as he slid down, but his backpack caught on an edge, saving him from dropping deeper. He dangled for a moment, shaking uncontrollably. When he pulled himself up, he noticed claw-like marks along the walls of the crevasse. Scratches several meters long. Nothing natural had made those. By the end of the second day his food began to run low. He had planned for a short trip. He hadn't imagined being trapped. He rationed the little bread and dried fish he had left. His mouth grew dry. His tongue stuck to his teeth. The silence around him grew heavier, almost expectant. That night he heard the growl again. Closer than before. He clutched his knife and whispered to himself that everything was fine. But his voice didn't sound convincing. A thick fog rolled in the next morning, swallowing everything. Henrik walked slowly, step by step, testing the snow. He felt the fog pressing against him like fabric. Then he saw it. A tall, thin shape standing far ahead. Unmoving. Watching. He froze. The shape disappeared. As if the fog inhaled it. Henrik ran blindly. He didn't care where. He just ran. His water bottle emptied on day 3. His lips cracked. His throat burned. Desperation forced him to melt snow in his hands, swallowing it slowly even though he knew glacier snow could upset the stomach. But thirst is louder than caution. His head pounded. His vision blurred. He knew dehydration would kill him faster than the cold. Then he remembered something the locals said jokingly when he rented his supplies. If you are desperate, drink anything warm. He understood what they meant. He hated himself for it. But he survived the night. He woke up to the sound of fast footsteps circling his tent. Not human footsteps. Something heavier. Faster. Something that moved with purpose. The wind stopped completely. The footsteps stopped. Henrik didn't breathe. Then something pressed lightly against the outside of the tent fabric. A slow glide. As if a hand. Or a face. He sat frozen for hours, holding the knife against his chest. At dawn the marks were gone. By day 4, hunger became unbearable. His stomach cramped painfully. His legs trembled without reason. He needed food. He dug through snow, hoping to find anything. Insects. Frozen plants. Something. At the base of a ridge he found a patch of snow mixed with dark specks. Small beetles. Slow moving in the cold. He scooped them up, apologizing under his breath though he didn't know why, and forced himself to eat them. The bitterness made him gag. But strength slowly returned. Survival strips away pride. Snow settled strangely that afternoon. The wind blew in circles, leaving a spiral pattern on the ground. Henrik stepped forward carefully and heard the deep groan again. Then, without warning, the ice cracked open behind him like a mouth. A long fracture spread across the surface. Ice plates tilted inward. The glacier was swallowing its own land. Henrik ran until his lungs burned. He saw dark land again. Closer this time. So close he could smell stone and earth. He crawled toward it, his limbs shaking violently. Then the land vanished into fog. He fell on his knees and screamed. Not from fear. From exhaustion. From frustration. From feeling played with. The glacier had a personality. And it didn't want him to leave. That night he heard whispering. Gentle. Almost like a woman singing. He sat up, trying to follow the sound. It drifted around him in circles. Sometimes near. Sometimes far. The voice repeated a single phrase, but the words were distorted by wind. He stood, desperate for human contact. Then he saw the tall figure again. Closer. He ran back into his tent and hid inside, clutching his coat like a shield. By day 6 Henrik's legs barely moved. He forced himself to stand. The sky looked clearer. He decided to try one last long walk in a straight direction, refusing to turn even if the path changed. As he walked, he passed shallow holes in the snow. Perfect circles. Dozens of them. Each large enough for a human foot. But they were too deep. Too straight. Too deliberate. Something had been tracking him. Late afternoon sunlight hit the ice, creating long shadows. Henrik walked slowly, praying for land. Then he noticed a shadow walking beside his own. Tall. Bent. Thin. He spun around. No one was there. But the shadow stayed, stretching beside him like a waiting companion. He closed his eyes and kept walking. His body gave up on day 8. He fell face first into snow, too weak to catch himself. His mind drifted. His hands went numb. He told himself this was where the story ended. The glacier hummed beneath him. Not groaning. Humming. Like something satisfied. Darkness pulled him under. When Henrik opened his eyes, he wasn't alone. 2 Icelandic search workers stood above him, shaking him gently. A distant hunter had spotted a strange flickering light on the glacier 2 nights earlier. He assumed it was a lantern. He reported it. A rescue team searched for hours before finding Henrik unconscious near the edge of a ridge, half covered in snow. He was barely breathing. Severely dehydrated. Starving. But alive. They carried him away from the glacier, refusing to spend more time there than necessary. Henrik recovered in a small clinic near Hopen. The staff said he mumbled in his sleep, repeating the same phrase. "It wants me to come back." He never explained what that meant. He returned to Norway and quit teaching for a year. He lived quietly, avoiding winter landscapes entirely. When friends asked him what he saw on the glacier, he only answered with one sentence. "Beauty can hide hunger." Vatnajökull still stands today. Bright. Silent. Shining like a piece of glass carved by time. But beneath that beauty is a world that does not welcome the unprepared. A world that moves when it wants. A world that listens. Henrik survived 8 days in a land that doesn't forgive mistakes. Many others, through decades, were not as fortunate. Their names are remembered only by the cold. This story is a reminder that adventure carries danger, and danger often hides in the places we call beautiful. If you want more stories like this, real survival tales from forgotten corners of the world, subscribe so you never miss the next journey.